We are in Chapter 7, Part 3 of The Manipulated Mind by Denise Wynn. Hilgard concluded that there was evidence, therefore, that people could get pain relief by hypnotic suggestion. They were not merely keeping their sufferings to themselves in order to please the hypnotist. A study of hypnosis and pain was carried out at the Wright-Patterson Aerospace Medical Laboratories in Ohio, according to Vance Packard and the People Shapers. The goal was to establish how aerospace pilots could best be kept alert during emergencies where they might be suffering debilitating extremes of heat and cold. Hypnotized students were put in special hot compartments and told to keep working on a specified task. They learned to carry on functioning efficiently in temperatures of 140 degrees. One student said that he had actually felt cool. He had been imagining he was a lifeguard at a swimming pool. Barber might construe that the student was achieving his end by his ability to fantasize, rather than by the power of hypnosis. Yet another theory as to why hypnosis works has been ardently proposed and defended by the American psychologist Andrew Salter. He believes that hypnosis is simply a form of conditioning. Pavlov, during his work on conditioning, first posited that suggestibility was the most simple type of conditioned reflex in man because speech could serve as a conditioned stimulus. Thus, just as dogs might salivate to a bell if they associated it with food, so humans might salivate on hearing the words roast chicken or peppered steak, because these words had become associated with the real thing. Salter, an arch opponent of Barber's theories, takes this idea on to explain hypnosis and various other inexplicable phenomena such as hallucination. In his own words from his book, Conditioned Reflex Therapy, what does a spectator see when a good subject is hypnotized? The hypnotist, unfortunate word, says in a soporific voice, "Your eyes are so heavy." Does it not seem plausible that the word heavy in good subjects was associated with heavy feelings, and that the repetition of the word heavy by the hypnotist acted as the bell of past associations of actual heavy feelings? In a sense, then, hypnotists are persons who ring standard bells and find some dogs who were trained to salivate to them, in this instance people who felt heavy and tired. "Behold," they say, "here is a good subject." How meaningless! How easy to understand are the shivers that appropriate hypnotic suggestion of ice and snow produces in a good subject. He processes verbally conditioned bells waiting to be rung. He goes on to explain pain relief and the experience of hallucination by similar means. As regards pain, he draws attention to the fact that it is common to discover with surprise bruises on one's body that indicated some severe blow and yet which wasn't registered at the time, presumably because attention was elsewhere. Therefore, when hypnotized not to feel pain, what is happening is that the hypnotist's statements about the subject's inability to feel any forthcoming pain trigger established reaction systems of anesthesia. He refers to an experiment carried out by Elson and reported in the Journal of Experimental Psychiatry, where subjects were shown a light and heard a tone simultaneously. 32 out of 42 subjects later reported hearing the tone when only the light was shown. Salter concludes, this means that 80% of the subjects in this experiment could not tell the difference between a bona fide sound and their own hallucinations. When we realize that sights and sounds can be conditioned, and that the bells that conjure them up may be set off internally, we can understand why Luther threw an inkpot at the devil, and from whence came the voices heard by Joan of Arc and Mohammed, to say nothing of the ghosts sincerely reported by more mundane persons. There can be no question that hallucinations in hypnosis and the sensory miracles associated with various saints are essentially genuine and explicable phenomena of conditioning. Hunger, fatigue, and excitement, all of which reduce inhibition, would facilitate hallucinatory experiences. Salter goes on to make his perhaps most controversial claim that if hypnosis is, as he believes, purely an aspect of conditioning, then it should be perfectly possible to train people to carry out antisocial acts, or harm themselves or others. In short, suggestion need not fit in with moral code, and therefore under hypnosis, a person could be led to undertake to commit a crime. Hypnosis is not the production of a state. It is the eliciting of one. But if the reflex patterns in hypnotic subjects are there at the start, and such seems to be the case, we are forced to entertain the curious conclusion that suggestion does not implant anything. But this is not so. Hypnosis takes advantage of something already there in order to plant something new. Salter points out that just as intelligent people are most easy to condition, so are they easiest to hypnotize. Perry, London, and behavior control arrives by a different route at the conclusion that hypnosis and conditioning, if not identical, are indeed linked. He participated in a study which demonstrated that the more susceptible people are to hypnosis, the higher their general level of brainwave activity. He goes on to say, the mental character of hypnosis also makes it appear to be the opposite of conditioning, which is an evolutionary spin-off of the spinal reflex, a system of parlaying primitive muscle and gland action into fancy behavior. Hypnosis begins its effects in the higher brain centers, where it is induced by means of speech. It starts at the mind and works downward. In that sense, desensitization, that's not how it's spelled, but and implosive therapy, flooding, are both akin to hypnosis. They aim at the mind directly, primarily by verbal means, and they use the images conjured by the therapist as catalysts for manipulating the emotional responses of the patient. But they are also conditioning methods, producing the same effects by the same means on human beings as on cats and rats. They thus represent a bridge between hypnosis and conditioning, which may be more closely related processes physiologically than is now known. And I'll stop it right there, and then we'll pick up in the next video with Chapter 7, and we will be in Part 4. This was Part 3. See you there.